Hello and welcome to the Manipal Dubai studio. Today we have with us Mr. T.V Mohandas Pai. Mr. Pai is the current chairman of Manipal Global Education. He is the former CFO of Infosys and also the driving force behind the Akshaya Patra Foundation. He has been commended on multiple occasions for his work in the world of finance as well as his contribution to providing midday meals to over 1 million children across India. Welcome, sir. It is an honor to have you on our show.
Thank you.
So, from the days that you have attended your college, what major changes do you see when it comes to the students, their attitude, as well as the educational institutes and their approach towards education?
Well, first of all, I think students are much better read than they were earlier because they have access to the internet and many of them are technologically savvy. So, they get news, they get a lot of information every single day from all over the world. They are mostly up to date, they are on social media and well networked. So, it is a very, very different kind of students that you get. Second, I think they are very articulate, they are more confident and they can speak effectively, they are not scared of speaking to people. They do not care for hierarchy like possibly we did at that point of time, and they are a little bit more aggressive. And thirdly, the attention span is shorter than it was. Earlier people used to read books. You must be surprised that people used to read big fat books. Now I do not know whether they read books. They probably read a short synopsis or whatever it is, and you know, they are built very differently. The next thing which I noticed very effectively is that people have a lot of choices, so they are not afraid to experiment. Much earlier when you were in college, you had very little choices. You became a doctor, you became an engineer, you become a chartered accountant, or you became a lawyer. Now students can become a dancer, a musician, a social media expert, you can become a techie, you can become a software engineer, you can become so many things. And the world has become a very large place for them to go somewhere and to be adventurous and to do many other things. So I think it's a couple of generations that have changed since the time I went to college, and I think that things are very, very different today compared to what it was when possibly India was a closed economy, the world was a much smaller place, life moved very slowly, and when I went to college, TV was just coming in. It's a long time ago, and you know, the pace of life was very slow. But those days young people had ideology. You might ask, what is this ideology? People had ideology for socialism. They were all rebels, and the saying thing was that when you are young you are a socialist, as you grow older you become a capitalist. So people had ideology, they had some passion to argue, they wanted to fight for causes. Now I think this ideology is gone. People have become more individualistic, people have become more self-centered, and people possibly think of a group around themselves as against what we thought that we had to do for society. So I think things are very different.
Alright, sir. So what are the three most crucial values that students should imbibe to effectively chart their future as leaders of tomorrow?
Well, first of all, I think students should have a problem solving attitude, because when you go out into real life, you become a manager or you work anywhere in the company or you become an entrepreneur, you will have to solve problems and challenges. You got to be innovative and creative. So the way you look at things has got to be very, very different. So I think developing a problem solving attitude, having a spirit of can do, and being very passionate and aggressive about achieving something in your life, having high energy is very essential for somebody to succeed in real life. The second thing you must do is to have a good network, because today we are in a consumer society, a marketing society, and being in a consumer society, marketing becomes all the more important, and innovation cycles are becoming shorter. It implies that new products and services come into the market, and market is very competitive and market is very global. In this situation, only people who are more creative, people who innovate faster are the ones that you will succeed, and for that you need to create a network of people. You need to know many more people around the world, create an active network so it becomes easier for you to succeed and do whatever you want, and the network has to be global as against a very localized network that you got to have. And third, I think is essential to have a value system in the students if you want to succeed in life, a value system based upon integrity, based upon honesty, based upon transparency and based upon making sure that you keep your promises, and without the kind of integrity I do not think people will succeed for the long term. The world is losing its patience with people who lack integrity, and all around the world regulations and regulators are coming out with a system which seeks to punish people who transgress the line. So, no longer is cool to do things wrong just because you want to be wealthy or you want to succeed. So, I think good old fashioned integrity is something that students should have. I think these are the three things that should have: a problem solving attitude, a network of people all around the world which will help them do well, and a good value system.
So, the Indian higher education system is considered to be below par than most Western nations. So, what in your opinion should they be doing in order to launch our Indian universities so that they be at par with the other nations?
Well, you got to understand the way systems work. India has a very large higher education system. It has about 780 universities, 47,000 colleges, and 30 million young people in college. Every year about 8 million people join colleges. It is a very large system, and the system has grown from possibly 6 to 7 million about 15-20 years ago. So, in a short span of time, if the system has grown to be so large because there is a passion for higher education, there is an aspiration for higher education, no system can respond to give you high quality education, and public spending on education has not gone up in the same pace. 65% of students study in private colleges, and only 5 to 6% study in colleges which are funded by the government of India, rest by the states. And in the last many years, funding for our education has gone up in the central sphere, but not in the state sphere. So, it has been inadequate to meet the needs of people. So, in this situation quality will suffer, and also a new generation of young people have come to enter colleges. They are from poor circumstances, they struggle throughout their life, they come up the government school system, they have not been taught well, but they want a degree, they got high aspirations, and they are not highly finished products to go to college. So, you have got a variety of people to come into the system, and in this kind of a system it is very difficult to have the kind of quality that the West has. Even if you look at America, which has got maybe about 15 to 16 million students, the top 20% colleges are good, and that is what you hear about. You hear about the Harvard, the Yale, the Stanford, or the Carnegie Mellon. You do not hear about the great majority of colleges which are just as bad or as good as in India, because these top colleges have got great brands. You only think that everything is cool and everything is wonderful. It is a very developed country. So, if you look at people getting into the IITs or the institutes of management, the institutes of science, a lesser percentage of applicants get in there than in the United States. So, the top of India is very rigorous, the middle education institutions are fairly good, the bottom have a long way to go, and this is how it is going to remain, because we estimate, based upon a study that we did, by 2030 the total number of young people in colleges will go up to 70 million. It will be the largest higher education system in the world. It is the second largest in terms of students right now after China. It will overtake China in the next 3 to 5 years, and every year we have to produce something like 150,000 teachers, and we are not going to get these teachers because we produce only 35,000 PhDs, and a lot of PhDs are not of good quality because people do not want to go do a PhD. The last 20 years people have gone in the private sector, they have gone into good jobs, and teaching has not become such a big profession because people never got paid well. Now people are getting paid better in teaching, more and more people are coming, but it is going to take a long time. What we need to do is to look at the top 20% and see whether they are of an acceptable quality, and I think that is already happening in India. For example, there are 260,000 young Indians outside India, 125,000 in America, about 40,000 in Australia, 25-30,000 in the UK, and the rest in other places around the world. And I think the students going around is a very significant development. So, overall I would say that it is not as bad as what people think. Yes, we are not in the top 200 or the top 500, top 300, and the reason is that the rating mechanism done by the West is very different compared to the rating mechanism required for a country like India, because in a country like India you do not have too many foreign students coming, foreign faculty does not come in, and you have a social aspect to education because the government sector has 50% reservations for affirmative actions, and all these are not taken into account in countries outside India. So, when you compare apples and oranges, you inevitably think that you are not very good. But if you look at the products of these colleges, when they go to the United States and they compete with products of like universities, they do extremely well. So, there may be something very good in them. So, I am very optimistic that India will do well, but look at the numbers are enormous, and no country in the world in human history has created an education system of exceptional quality for such large numbers.
Yes, sir. So, what are your comments on the role of education in bringing about a tectonic change in the global socio-economic equation?
Education is the biggest investment society can make in an individual, and for an individual the biggest investment an individual can make is in education, because through education you transform an individual with no knowledge into an individual who can think logically, who can act logically, who can be articulate, and who has a knowledge base. And this individual becomes very productive in a very globalized world, which is based upon innovation, which is based upon knowledge, and which is based upon creativity. So, I think education is extremely important for every single individual, and we have seen that an educated populace has a higher quality of life, an educated populace has a greater adherence to law, an educated populace has a lower growth rate and a longer lifespan. So, education implies that you live your life very, very differently. You become a thinking, doing person compared to a person who can be easily exploited by others who have greater information than you. So, I think any society which has educated its population has transformed itself, and if you look at Western societies, it is because of high levels of literacy, high levels of education, especially college education, that they done well. Take the United States. After the Second World War, the returning soldiers were given access to university education through what is called the GI Bill, the General Issue Bill. That means all soldiers could go to college, and the education was paid for by the United States. It is this educated baby boomers who created the America that you know today, an America based upon innovation, science and technology. If you look at China, China is spending enormous amount of money and time into higher education. You look at Germany, Germany spends enormous amount of money into higher education, and about 70% of young people are college graduates in Germany, and Germany has become an industrial powerhouse. So also the erstwhile Soviet Union and the now Russia. So any society which has done well, which has developed because it has educated its population. So I think education is truly transformative for every society, and all societies have to invest in educating the populace.
All right, sir. So, what is the importance? How important does a foundation like Akshaya Patra play in achieving total literacy across the developing world?
Well, we have a major challenge in India, and the challenge in India is we have a very large number of people who are poor and who can't afford to send their children to school. And in these families, people typically send them to government schools because government schools don't charge any fees, they can't afford to pay. And in these families, parents go out early in the morning and come back late in the evening because the daily wage earners. And when they go out early in the morning, children don't get food at breakfast time, they only get a good decent dinner because they earn the money and spend the money on dinner. So when they go to school, they are either tired or listless and they are unable to concentrate on the studies, and parents tend to pull them out of class because they need to fill their stomach every single day. So Akshaya Patra is a program to provide hot unlimited midday meals to government schools. We feed 1.4 million children across 10,800 government schools in 9 states across India today, and this has had a tremendous impact. The rate of attrition in schools has come down, that means the dropout rate has come down, the percentage of enrollment has gone up in all the schools, the health weight indices of children has gone up, children have become much more healthier, taller and better built. And the remarkable thing is the girl child, after 7 to 8 years of midday meals, has better health indices than the boy child, because you find the boy child by the 8th or 9th class tends to bunk classes and go out because they probably don't like school or whatever it is. Where the girls come to school, they get fed and their health becomes better, they concentrate, and is that a remarkable impact on the girl child. And I think in the next 20 years you are going to see a transformation where women are going to be the larger part of the college population than the boys, and that I think is going to change India in an unbelievable manner. It is unimaginable how it is going to change. So Akshaya Patra is a strategic intervention as part of the government's program of midday meals to make sure that nutrition is given to every child who wants it, and because of nutrition children come to school, because children get food, children get educated, and I think that education transforms them over a period of time. It's the biggest investment has been done. There are about 160 million children in government schools who get a midday meal in India. It's the largest program of its type in the world. Everything about India is very, very large because the challenges are very large. It's a very large country with a huge population. So, so we are very happy with Akshaya Patra, and I think that in the next 15-20 years, you will find that Akshaya Patra would have become the beacon of hope for millions of children. We have supplied so far about 1.5 billion meals as an enormous amount. We have centralized kitchens, we use technology to supply meals, we change the menu every now and then, we look at the nutrition content of food and make sure that they get tasty food every single day. We use steam for cooking and many innovations. For example, in North India people eat chapatis, right, and when you have to supply 200,000 people with chapatis, that means you at 4 chapatis you need 600,000 chapatis. So we created a machine. We had a machine which made 10,000 chapatis an hour. We reconfigured to make 40,000 chapatis an hour. So we done many small things like that to make it. So you must come and see the kitchen. It's an industrial style kitchen where it works like a factory with assembly line and with hoppers and steam and things going around in a like a car factory, etc.
Wow. So you've been a strong advocate for social media and its usage. So how can social media help empower the youth of today?
Well, what is social media? Social media is a mechanism by which anybody can communicate the thoughts to anybody around the world in a asynchronous, instantaneous manner. That means nobody has the ability to control social media or the articulation of earlier thought. You go back 20-30 years, most countries which had political trouble, where governments were changed, when there was a coup, the military went and took over the radio station, because radio was a means to broadcast to the entire population. Then it became a TV station. Now with the advent of the internet, every individual has got the ability to speak and to say and to transmit all over. Earlier you could shut down the radio station, shut down the TV station, go to physically to newspapers offices, shut them down, and nobody knew anything. In the emergency in India in 1975, they shut down the newspapers and the radio was government controlled. So you never had any news. So you could control the minds of people, you could control the flow of information. Now with the net being there all over, with the net being connected by wireless all over, and individuals having smartphones and other devices to link to the net, and government not having the ability to shut down the net because of the other different mechanisms, you can broadcast by Twitter, you can deliver news by Twitter, you can articulate your views by Twitter, you can abuse your political leaders by Twitter, you can express yourself by Twitter, and nobody can stop it. So suddenly you are given individual freedom to millions of people who wanted this kind of freedom, and through this you are articulating your views and taking out your angst or your anger or communicating what you have to say. You are talking to your leaders and telling them what you think of them, because you can send emails by social media, and the leaders get feedback as to what is actually happening. Please remember, between the leader of a country and the citizens, very often there is a bureaucracy which stops the flow of information both ways. So leaders do not know what people want, they get disconnected, and somebody else then tries to be the power source. So here you can communicate directly with the leaders. For example, with Prime Minister Modi, thousands or millions of people write to him. He gets to know the news immediately. Nobody can come in the way and give him some story that this is what is happening, that is what is happening, because they know the truth. They will take a photograph for some project and send it to him and say, hey, you know what, things are not working, or things are working very well. This is what you said 2 years back, this fellow has not done this work. So imagine the freedom that people get. Social media is all about democratization all around the world. Social media is all about empowerment of people. Social media is all about communicating from people, and global leaders can communicate to other global leaders to social media. Now you have a prime minister of country who wants to talk to President Obama. How does he do? His bureaucrats have to come and they have to send a message to other side, they have to be ready, and somebody has to be there to make an arrangement for them to talk. Here you just tweet, and if you follow each other, instantaneously the message goes around, and I want to talk to you, and maybe you talk on a private number, right. So it becomes instantaneous. So you create a global community of people who are interlinked throughout with flows of information. The implications of that I don't think we understood so far, but all I believe is democratizing society, is enhancing the instantity of the flow of information, and overall creating a situation where everybody feels that society belongs to them and they are change agents.
But some media, which till recently was seen as the fourth estate, today it's seen as a big bad wolf. So how can media, what do we do so that media will not be seen in such a bad light?
Well, media had control over the thoughts of people and guided the thoughts of people in earlier era. All right. When you had newspapers, people wrote editorials, people wrote articles, and people read them and believed what they said, because people always believe newspapers, right, because it's supposed to be a public institution. Then you had the radio, you had talk show people who came there, then you had the TV. It is a one-way communication. Unless you wrote a letter to the editor, or possibly you went and did something to the radio station so they listened to you, there is never a way where citizens could respond to what is happening. So, they were a group of people in the media who had control of the minds and thoughts of people, because the one-way communication to push their ideas and everything else down the throat of others. It also meant that people who control the media had an ability to control the thoughts of people and to mold the public shape of public opinion, right. Now, it's all become open, because the internet has come. On the internet, anybody can start a blog, anybody can start a debate, anybody can discuss each other. So, the whole media world is turned topsy-turvy. Now, when you talk about media becoming bad wolves or whatever it is just that media's ability to manipulate public opinion has come down, because the number of places where information keeps coming has expanded tremendously. The sphere of influence has come down. So, media has to reshape its strategy. Media has to think of itself very differently. Newspapers are dying in the West. People do not want to buy newspapers because they are very expensive. People do not want to want to focus on certain things, and they can create their own newspaper on the web by using some apps. They can collect information from all over the place and create their own newspaper and get it at the time that they want. And through Twitter and social media, you are getting instantaneous information on events happening all around the world. Earlier, you used to newspaper of the news that happened the previous day in some part of the world. You did not know what it was. Now you know what it is. So, how people respond to media, how media thinks of itself, and how media should respond is something that is now very nebulous and has to be thought through. But I believe that the media has to fundamentally change itself, and change itself from becoming a purveyor of news as it came, because news are now being purveyed by a lot of people, to people who analyze the news, and because of the expertise and the knowledge, they are able to articulate a particular viewpoint and analyze. So, the intellectual content of the news has to become higher rather than just dissemination of news. And this kind of a ability that some people had of taking certain stances and taking certain positions is getting diluted, because there are many other people who are going to write about the same thing with a very different point of view, and if people try to manipulate, they are all going to get exposed. So, I think it's a very fascinating thing that is happening. I do not have an answer to which way it is going, what is going to happen, because right now it is very nebulous. But the good news is there are maybe 3 or 4 billion people who are networked, maybe 5 billion people or 7 billion people who are networked. Very soon all the 6-7 billion people are going to get networked wherever you are, and any remote place, any place you are, you are going to be part of this network. And then media's ability to communicate with you when there is a media clutter is going to be very different. For example, India, there are 300 channels in the TV. Earlier there 1 channel, 2 channels, 3 channels, right. So, media has got to be more individualistic rather than the mass who are forced to see. Media has to have something where each individual gets something that you want, and the revenue model and what they have to do, how they have to think, are something that has to be seen.
So, how do you think that the social media influences the education?
Well, social media influences education in that it allows individuals to express an opinion, and to express an opinion they need to have an information base. Social media can give access to information by itself or through the web. Social media can create peer groups where people can exchange views and form cozy clubs between themselves, where people can contribute to whatever they want. And social media can also create specialization, because specialist groups can be set up, right. So, social media is a part of the connection between content all around the world, people who form a small group and who have a particular interest in the content, and the individual who wants to do something extremely specialized. You understand? And you can create a global community all around the world of people who want to focus on certain things. So, I will say the social media is part of the entire transformation of society in a globalized world, where people are getting interlinked and people are coming together in a very large way.
So, what are the key messages that you would like to share with our students at Manipal Dubai?
Well, with Manipal Dubai, I just give a speech now in the robotics lab, and what I want to say is that all of you should have a problem solving attitude. You must have curiosity about the way the world is and how the world is going to be, and believe that you have the ability to change the world. And if you have a problem solving attitude, you tend to become more creative, you tend to become more innovative, and in the knowledge society where you are going to enter upon completing your college, your ability to succeed depends upon how innovative you are and how out of the box solutions you can think of and compete with everybody else. But competition is going to be very intense. The field is getting level and everybody is going to be part of the same global community instead of being part of a local community which is close to the outside world. So you need to have a problem solving attitude. And the second, you need to become much more innovative and creative, because if you have a me too attitude, you are like anybody else, you are going to lose out, because a lot of jobs are going to get automated. When a lot of jobs are going to get automated, much of the jobs that people doing with a repetitive, which was required because it had to be done in a particular way, will be done by technology. And once you do that, the need for the human being comes down. So how do you contribute? You can contribute by being creative. So problem solving leads to creativity, leads to innovation, that makes you extremely competitive. And then you must have global mobility. You should be able to go work anywhere with a very different industry because you have a problem solving attitude, etc. So, and you must have an ability to compete, and you must have an ability to articulate, to be heard, because we are in a consumer market and the world is becoming a consumer place where people have to talk, people have to market themselves. So I think you need to have the kind of skills of marketing yourself, traveling to other parts of the world, settling down and treating the whole world as your stage. And then you must develop the ability to relearn constantly to be on top. You just can't believe that you finish your education and now you're going to sit down and be comfortable, get a good job, somebody is going to pay you money 9 to 5 and enjoy your life or go for a big holiday. It's not going to work. Things are going to be very different. In Infosys, I used to work 12 to 14 hours a day, 24/7. I mean, that's the way, because we were all self motivated and self driven. We had to do it. We wanted to create a great company. We wanted to challenge ourselves. We wanted to fight the battle. We wanted to win again. We wanted to compete against the best in the world and be the best in the world. We wanted to set standards. So it was a passion that came from within. So you got to be very self motivated and self driven to succeed. And lastly, you have to have your value system. I mean, that's something that's very dear to us in Manipal, because I think Manipal is built upon a great value system, and the value system is what makes it sustainable, and value system makes it live longer. So sustainability depends upon the kind of values that you have and how you interact with society. So these are some of the things that I want to tell young people as they leave college, because the world is going to be an extremely different place, and the world is going to change much more rapidly, and the world is much more competitive and much more fast moving. So if you want to succeed, you got to have all this, and if you do that, you will definitely succeed.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that was Mr. T.V Mohandas Pai. For you, thank you for watching.